morning, scientists. This is Kelly Wenzel, Project Director for Urban Education Outreach with New Jersey Audubon. And today we're going to set up an experiment so that you can better understand how plants get the nutrients that they need to survive. So most of us only think about sunlight when we think about plants, but they are much more complex than that. So I'm in my garden and I'm starting to weed this morning, and I see this plant. Does anyone know what it is? It's a dandelion. Now, they are beautiful yellow plants. They are great for pollinators, especially early on. They're one of the first things to bloom. But when they're growing in the wrong space, they can outcompete my other plants. So this one I'm going to take out, but all the lovely dandelions in my yard, I kind of keep there. Now, I could just try to pull this guy out. You see he's kind of buried in the wood chips here. And if I just try to yank on him, he's not coming out very quickly. So I'm going to dig this guy out and show you why. Okay, so I've taken my garden trowel and dug out my dandelion. And I want you all to make observations on my dandelion. What do you see? Can you draw it in your notebook? Okay, scientists, so I brought my dandelion inside so it's a little bit easier to see. And we're going to look at this from a top view. So here I have my sheet for my science notebook. So you should get your science notebook or a sheet of paper. And as always, we're going to write our names on the top. And today's date, for me, it's April 27th, 2020. And remember what we called this flower outside? What's the name of our flower that we're going to be drawing today? That's right, it's a dandelion. If you want to try this with a flower in your own yard, just ask for permission to dig up a flower, your own dandelion or something else, but just make sure it's okay to dig up first. And when you dig it, make sure you get all the parts because it's very important that we see the whole plant, top and bottom. So I'm going to start here drawing on the bottom of my plant. I will add in some of my greens in the center here. Let me pull a couple out so we can see their wonderful shape. And then all the way up top. So in our drawing, we want to make sure that we get all of our parts. Look at the shape of that beautiful green on the top. And our yellow has faded a little bit, but that's okay. We remember what it looks like from outside. So let's draw it together. Great. Now, pause the video and see if you can label all the parts yourself. That's how I was able to label my dandelion. So we have the flower at the top, the yellow part. We have our leaves, the green, our stem in the center holding everything up, and down below are the roots. So if you were to put the soil in here, where is your dandelion growing? Right? The roots grow under the soil. So that's how our dandelion was growing outside. So now we're going to go ahead and make a model of how the inside of our dandelion and most plants like dandelions work. It's going to be so much fun. All right, scientists, I hope you had a fun time drawing your dandelions. Now we're going to make a model of how this plant works. So if you have the supplies, please feel free to make the model along with me and pause the video as you need to. If you're a little short on supplies, don't worry. We're going to do it together, so you can always watch me build my model and then do it when you can get your supplies. So in order to build your model, you're going to need So let's get started. Okay, so you can see I have another page started for my science journal. I have my name, the date, and what I'm doing on the top of my page. So the first thing we're going to do is look at our potting soil. So this is different than soil that you'd find outside because there's these white little pieces in here. You see them? What else can you see in my potting soil as I zoom closer? Looks like there's little sticks in here. And then all this regular kind of soil brown material. Sometimes you'll find a little shiny piece in here. So is this soil all the same? No, there's different pieces, different things that make up this soil, right? So if we took all day, could we actually separate out all these little white pieces and sticks from the soil? We could, right? We could sit here and sort it all out, get all the sticks in one pile, all the white pieces of vermiculite in another pile, and the regular soil in another pile. And we could separate out all the pieces. So this is called a heterogeneous mixture. Knowing what you know about this soil, take a minute to define what a heterogeneous mixture means. Okay, so now that you have some thoughts written in your science notebook, a heterogeneous mixture is a mixture that is made up of different pieces. Hetero, different. So it also means that you can pick these pieces apart. So these pieces are big enough that we can individually take them apart and make separate piles. So that is what we mean by a heterogeneous mixture. Now, we're going to set this aside for a minute. So here we have our glass of water, right? Pretty simple. Okay, so now I'm going to take my food coloring and just add a few drops. 3 drops should do. And let me get my stirring stick here. Just give it a little stir. Now, let's look at this mixture. Can we take the pieces apart? Does the water look different in different pieces? No, there's nothing really floating in it. It's just all red. It's all pretty consistent. So this is called a homogeneous mixture or a solution. So based on what we know about our water with the food coloring in it, take a minute in your science notebook and make a definition of what a homogeneous mixture or a solution is. Okay, great. You can't easily separate out the parts, right? One thing is dissolved into another thing so completely that it would be very hard to separate all the things back out. it would be very hard to get the food coloring separated back out from the water. So therefore, this is a solution, or a homo, meaning same, homogeneous mixture. Okay, so to start building our model, we're going to have a piece of our paper towel and our bubble tea straw cut into about a 3-inch piece. Now to make the model this way, all you're going to do is crinkle up your paper towel, kind of twist it a little bit to make a long paper towel rope. Now, don't twist it too much or it's going to tear. Once you get it twisted, you're just going to kind of put it through your straw. So you could do this with a skinny straw, but it would be really hard. So once you get it through the end, you just pull it out so you have what would be the leaves on the top, and you can spread those out, and the roots on the bottom. So that's the first way to make our model. If you don't have a straw, you can always use your pencil and some tape. My tape is clear, but it doesn't matter. Just take your napkin and cut it into about a 1-inch strip and just carefully tape it onto your pencil. And that's it. Okay, scientists, now comes the fun part. We're going to make a little mud. So all you're going to do is put some of your soil into your cup of water. You don't necessarily need to put all of it in there. It really depends on how much soil you collected. And really stir it up. You don't want it too soupy. You kind of want it more like how you would water a plant. So I'm going to add a little more soil. And it might feel dry, but as long as the soil is pretty moist, that looks pretty good. Everything should be good. All right, so can you see how moist my soil is? There's not puddles of water, but everything is thoroughly wet. Okay, now either put your straw in the soil and really push it down. You can use your popsicle stick to make sure that the roots are in the soil. Or if you're using your pencil, you may have to wind your paper towel up so it's a little shorter, and kind of do the same thing. Just take your pencil or your popsicle stick and shove it down in there, and then rest the pencil on the edge of your cup. And now we wait. Okay, scientists, so it's been about 15 minutes and I've let my samples here, my model, do its thing. And look what is happening. So on both versions of my model, can you see what's happening? The red food coloring is traveling up the paper towel. And the longer I let it sit, the further up the paper towel it will go. I would like you to draw the model of our plant so that we can start making comparisons between our model and our dandelion plant. So briefly, here's the model that I drew. representing my cup. I chose to draw the model with the pencil over the top and show how the red food coloring, if you have red colored pencils, it would be great to color it in and really make it stand out so you understand what is happening in your model. So now that we've drawn our model and we can look at our dandelion again, or even better, get our dandelion drawing and put that right next to our model. What do you think is happening inside our dandelion plant? How do you think this plant was getting all of the nutrients it needed to survive? So a lot of people have heard the word photosynthesis, which is the plant takes sunlight and carbon dioxide into its leaves and makes energy for the plant. But there's something else going on inside the plant, inside the roots. It's a whole system, just like a factory. So I'm going to show you a little animation that I made that shows you how the inside of a plant really works.
Okay, scientists, so I have drawn a very detailed drawing for you of the inside of a plant. It looks a little different than the one that we drew in our science notebook. It has many more parts. So let's go through the whole process of how plants get all of the energy and nutrients they need to survive. So everything begins with the sun. The sun gives the earth energy to do everything that we need to do. And in green plants, like our dandelion, that energy is used in a process called photosynthesis. Now, very simply, photosynthesis is a chemical process that happens inside green plants and uses sunlight to turn carbon dioxide, like our breath, and water into sugar that the cells can then use for energy. So it's not quite all the food they need, but it gives the plant energy. Those sugars then travel down through the plant in the phloem. And phloem goes from the leaves to the roots, and it takes those sugars through the plant. Now, can you think of why a plant would need sugar? Have you ever eaten a plant with a lot of sugar in it? Think about a root plant like carrots or beets. They store the sugars in their roots. Now, not every plant does that, but it's key to remember that the sugars are formed with the chlorophyll in the leaves, and they use phloem to flow down towards the roots. Now, in the soil, think of our model. We had the food coloring and water mixed in to the soil, just like happens in real life. Now, in our model, what did the food coloring represent? The food coloring represented nutrients, and those nutrients are then absorbed by the roots and all those little tiny root hairs, and they go up through the plant using xylem. So xylem is the highway that takes the water and nutrients to the rest of the plant. Now, nutrients are different than energy. In our diagram, I've listed 3 key nutrients that all green plants need. And they're listed here as K, N, and P, or potassium, nitrogen, and phosphorus. Those key nutrients are really what helps the plant grow. Now, what happens when we eat a plant that's full of nutrients like potassium, nitrogen, and phosphorus? Do you think we take in those nutrients too? Absolutely. So the nutrients are absorbed by the plant using xylem, the superhighway. And then, just like every living thing, there's waste. So in plants, they give off water and oxygen through transpiration. And that's what helps keep us as humans healthy as well, because we breathe in that oxygen. So it's one big cycle from the sun down through the plant. The plant creates sugars to give it energy, stores some of that energy in roots and other parts of the plant. The nutrients trapped in the soil are dissolved in water, and using xylem, they go up through the plant into the leaves, transferring nutrients such as potassium, nitrogen, and phosphorus into those leaves and stems that we often eat. And then excess water and oxygen are released from the plant. And that is how a plant is very much like a factory.
Okay, scientists, so we've had an opportunity to look at our dandelion plant a lot of different ways. So first, we drew it and we labeled all of its parts, and it looked pretty simple. And then we created a model where we looked at how the inside of our plant works. And we figured out that the food coloring that was dissolved inside the water and then mixed in with our soil were the nutrients that the plant is absorbing. And we saw that happen in real time as the food coloring wicked up through the paper towel and turned the towel red. And then we looked at our interactive animation on how the inside of the plant is totally like a factory, with all these things happening at once. So I hope you enjoyed our experiment today, and maybe look at plants a little differently the next time you're outside. So just for fun, I'm going to show you how our model has changed over the course of the time of me making this video. And I want you to reflect on how plants get their nutrients that they need, not from the soil and not from the sun, but they get it from the nutrients such as potassium, nitrogen, and phosphorus dissolved in the water, going up through that xylem and into the leaves and the stem of the plant. So here's a quick shot of our model. So last shot of our model, look how much farther up the food coloring has gone up the paper towel in both the version with the straw and the version with the pencil. And if we leave it out here long enough, it will travel even further up. So you can see how if this were a leaf of the plant and the leaf is actually wet up to here, that the plant would be getting the nutrients it needs.